Welcome back. This is the part 2 of the book Get to the Top. The man who taught me this simple yet profound truth was my first boss, Ram Ray. Ram, for those of you who don't know, is a legend in Indian advertising. He is the founder and CEO of an ad agency, Response. And before that, he had an illustrious career with J. Walter Thompson, one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world. When I joined Response in 1986, it is known for its seminal campaign for brands like Jensen and Nicholson, although it wasn't responsible for creating that great tagline, "Whenever you think of color, think of us." That was by Arun Nehru, the paint company's former CEO. And Borolin. Borolin became the quintessential Bengali ad. It essentially said that in every Bengali's life, there had to be a chakar, servant, kukur, pet, pukur, pond, and Borolin. Response was also the agency's Response was also the agency that launched the soap Aramusk. We were the first agency to brand a soap not on cleanliness but on sex appeal, lust versus leather. As for Ram, well, he seemed to us to be more like a rotund professor at a stubborn college in the Midwest America than an advertising agency boss in central Kolkata. He is a portly, bespectacled man with a bearing that may remind you of a waddling duck's. He is also a man with many passions. He loved Kolkata, literature, cinema, photography, typography, art, crafts, food, and the internet. He was so he was probably the second person to get himself an Apple computer after Steve Jobs. He is also someone who won't have his Bloody Mary without a celery stick in it and will make sure that the glass is properly rimmed with salt. Now, of course, in Delhi, they use Swarovski sticks. Ram was both generous and patient with his employees. He had a library that he was proud of and was equally happy to let all of us who worked for him dip into it. I was merely management trainee and Ram needn't have been that indulgent, but then Ram knew we were the soldiers who were facing client ranks. We if we would if we looked smart, so did response. I remember many a time I would pick up a book that had nothing to do with the marketing but would instead be about the history of fonts. Yes, fonts that you use for writing. I would then have a conversation with my art director on his subject rather than mine. In the process, my work would get done before anyone else. In addition to me having gained some unexpected knowledge, which again never kills you. Ram didn't just encourage us to read widely, but also, like him, to have as many interests as possible. Response sponsored my play Bhutto and designed its brochure because he approved of my being passionate about theatre. For example, as a result, the greatest lesson Ram taught me were all outside of work. During the day, we worked as advertising executives, slogging over briefs and taglines, but post sunset, Ram would conjure a different world for us. From discussing typography to waxing forth on Ayn Rand, he would create an adda like I had never seen before. We were dazzled. This is what my colleagues and I looked forward to. There was nothing more stimulating than ending a day with guarantee that you will learn even more tomorrow. This has always been my mantra since you will never know enough. Don't be insecure about this. Rather, be secure in the belief that you will learn more and be prepared to learn all the time. The mind must be an ever absorbing sponge. I remember having French onion soup with Ram at newly opened Conclave, Kolkata first upscale restaurant, where spent hours discussing the manner in which the onion had to be peeled. Our conversations weren't just about gourmet food. I have fond memories of arguing with him about where to get the best jhal muri in town while discussing the launch of Fruity. This goes back to my earlier point, be interested in everything. Ram also taught me the need to think tangentially. Tangential thinking was made famous by Edward de Bono in his book Six Thinking Hats, and it is jargon for thinking out of the box. Ram encouraged this to a fault. The only way you can think tangentially is if you have an open mind and enough knowledge to back your ideas up. The letter will come up from reading. The letter will come from reading and more critically from listening and observing. We would use it to find ways of Kolkata's famed traffic snarls and also for client solutions. This is what gave me unbridled joy to work with a man who cared for no conventions, no borders. All he wanted was young, unfettered mind anchored in integrity and logic. The reason why I am laboring over the point about Ram is because he shaped me into a man I am today, and many of my interests arise in part because of his passions. There are two sub rules to this. Sub rule 1, get a mentor. Apart from reading, another way to cultivate interest is to get yourself a mentor or to surround yourself with people who have lot of interest. Mentors are different from people who would ordinarily think of as benefactors. You don't have to announce someone as your mentor, but it is important, even silently, to accept someone as the same. Mentors help you stay the course. They also help you recognize the pitfalls from moments of trump. They help you learn enough things, and thanks to all, they are the ultimate accessory. Very few of us are lucky enough to find mentors like Ram was to me, but there will always be someone around you who will have the experience beyond yours and know about things that you don't. Celebrate that and be prepared to sit at your mentor's feet and learn rather than be obnoxious and believe you know it all. Remember, mentoring is not a 21st century concept. Krishna was not Arjuna's god, he was his mentor. In that famous conversation held on a chariot, there were many there were many life lessons that Arjuna received from Krishna, but not once did Krishna force Arjuna to adopt them. That is the hallmark of a true mentor. He shows you many paths, but ultimately it is your journey, and the destination is one that you set for yourself. This is how mentors are different from benefactors. Mentors show you that the way Mentors show you the way. Unlike benefactors, they don't hold your hand or carry you all the way to your goals. Okay, 8 minute complete. Next part will be tomorrow. Thank you for listening.